Well, good evening, everyone. We're really excited to see you all and to be here today together in Geneva for the global launch of the Periodic Table of Food Initiative. I'm Greg Mandel. I am the Executive Advisor for Mission Advancement with the American Heart Association. And I am really excited to be teeing up a whole series of conversations this evening about the integration of food, health, and agriculture. So for this evening, we're going to have a couple of different panels. We're going to start talking about visions for food and health. We'll move on with a chef's perspective from Alejandra. We'll have some time to share some refreshments and a reception together. And then we'll get more into the science for data-driven applications to revolutionize food systems and applying foodomics to revolutionize food systems. So before we get into the discussion, we're going to show a brief video that talks a little bit about the vision and how we all came to be here this evening.
Food is at the heart of so many of the world's global challenges, whether that's climate change or the rising costs of healthcare or biodiversity loss. We still don't know as much about food as we should.
Despite the tremendous advances that have been made in analytical technology, we don't have a comprehensive understanding of what is in food.
So the PTFI is the Periodic Table of Food Initiative, and the goal is to actually create the world's deepest and broadest database of food composition information.
It is connecting food composition back to the environment, back to agriculture, and then what are the implications of this for nutrition and human health outcomes.
The results of this research will develop science-based approaches that tackle hunger and malnutrition from the ground up, divulging the health potential of crops and other foods by creating a deep understanding of underlying nutritional traits.
The challenge with mass spectrometry is that it's not particularly standardized in a way that brings all the data in the end together in a comparable way to other resources. We don't really have the tools to be able to go out and profile foods or profile other types of materials and to bring all that information back into a database where all the data are harmonized. So our role in the technology is to develop strategies, approaches, tools, reagents, protocols that standardize that mass spectrometry technology and that standardize the data processing part of that technology that allow us to build reference resources or standardized databases.
In addition to informing equitable food policies, PTFI will bring underutilized crops into the mainstream food system, providing new sources of nutrition to consumers and creating economic opportunities for local communities.
This is a collaborative initiative across disciplines, across geographies to achieve this common goal of creating the world's most comprehensive data platform on food and health.
We really do need to understand the quality dimensions of our food. We believe that this project is going to be a revolutionary step in the direction of really creating quality diets for everyone on the planet.
All right, now I'm going to take a moment to introduce this excellent set of panelists we have here with us this evening. So first we have Dr. Roy Steiner, the Senior Vice President for the Food Initiative at the Rockefeller Foundation, where he leads a team focused on creating access to nourishing food for millions of people around the United States and around the world, supporting scientific advances in human nutrition and sustainable food production, and carrying forward the Foundation's enduring commitment to people and the planet. We also have Dr. Andy Jarvis, Associate Director General of Research Strategy at the Alliance for Biodiversity, CIAT. He has nearly 2 decades of research experience in developing countries, and his research spans disciplines including GIS-based analysis of plant genetic resources, climate change, digital agriculture, and policy-relevant research for development. He's published more than 80 original research articles, many of which have appeared in Nature, PNAS, and Proceedings of the Royal Society. We're also joined by Dr. Francesco Branca, the Director of the Department of Nutrition and Food Safety at the World Health Organization. During his tenure, WHO has established new nutritional guideline development processes and has developed a comprehensive implementation plan on maternal, infant, and young child nutrition with 6 global targets. He's been leading the preparation of the Second International Conference on Nutrition. He's been a senior scientist at the Italian Food and Nutrition Research Institute, where he was leading studies on the effects of food and the stages of the life cycle on the impact of public health nutrition programs. He's been president of the Federation of the European Nutrition Societies from 2003 to 2007. He graduated from medicine and surgery and specialized in diabetology and metabolic diseases in the Università Cattolica di Sacro Cuore, Roma, and attained a PhD in nutrition from Aberdeen University. We're also joined by Chef Alejandra, a world-respected chef that's going to help us understand a little bit more about how food and health work together in the kitchen. So I'm going to pass it now to Dr. Roy Steiner to help tee up our next video.
Sure. It's really an amazing honor to be here. I think this is going to be a revolutionary project. And you know, the Rockefeller Foundation has been investing in food and agriculture for almost 108 years. And for much of that, it's really been focused on productivity. But we now know that the key issues, you know, dietary quality, the impact on the environment, et cetera, really have to depend on our understanding of food, and we just don't have that at the level we need. And so Raj Shah, our president, was supposed to be here, but unfortunately could not make it, but he did give us a video. So to kick us off, we're going to have a video from Dr. Raj Shah.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the global launch of the Periodic Table of Food initiative. On behalf of everyone at the Rockefeller Foundation, we're glad you've joined us. Although I wish I could be with you all in person, I'm grateful for this chance to participate virtually. In the past 12 weeks, since Russia invaded Ukraine, a multidimensional, multi-year food emergency has grown more acute. Across the Middle East and Africa, year-to-date price increases in commodities, corn, wheat, soybeans, rice, and cooking oils, represent up to a 5% decrease in GDP for those nations. And people are already suffering. Recent estimates suggest the crisis has so far caused 354 million people to become food insecure. And it has pushed almost 10 million of them to the edge of famine. But those of us here know that this is just the latest crisis for a food system that's unhealthy for people and unsustainable for the planet. Diet-related diseases have accounted for 1 in 5 deaths worldwide. And our food system accounts for 1/3 of all greenhouse gas emissions. That's why we need to transform our global food system so that it works for people and planet alike. And that transformation starts with understanding what's in the food we eat. Despite incredible advances over the past few decades, too many people know too little about the composition of our food. In fact, most food composition tables only have data for about 150 biochemicals in food. That's just 150 out of tens of thousands. To fill this gap in the world's knowledge, the Rockefeller Foundation, together with our partners, established the Periodic Table of Food initiative. This global effort spans dozens of research institutions from India to Colombia, from Ghana to Australia. Our goals are simple yet revolutionary. First, develop a platform to identify the full biochemical composition of the most important foods from around the world. And second, make that platform and its data accessible to everyone. If we do so, if everyone can understand exactly what's in our food, the results could be revolutionary. With the Periodic Table of Food, we can fight malnutrition, improve dietary quality, and help people make healthier food choices. We can identify agricultural practices that use fewer resources to produce higher quality foods and ultimately grow biodiversity. And we can better understand how to select and breed crops that can feed people in a changing climate. But we cannot complete the Periodic Table of Food alone. We need your help. Please reach out to our team, led by Dr. Roy Steiner, if you'd like to join this project as a supporter, a researcher, or an advocate. And please visit foodperiodictable.org to sign up for the latest news about our work. Together, we can build a periodic table of food, and with it, a food system that can nourish our planet and its people. Thank you.
All right. And we're grateful for Dr. Shah's remarks. So, Roy, Andy, what else would you add in addition to what Raj had said?
Well, I'll jump in. It's very difficult to follow Raj. Raj just nailed everything there in that short video. He really packed it in there. But first of all, on behalf of CGIAR, it's an absolute pleasure to be up here. This is a trailblazing initiative. It's one of those like once in a decade things that has come across my desk that is just super exciting, and it's one of those things that's got me in food and conversations over dinner. I met someone in the airport on the way here, and I was just talking to them, and I talked to them about the periodic table of food and how it's going to change everything. And it is really a trailblazing initiative, and I think, for a number of reasons. One is it's so exciting as in a world where we have food at the center of so many of our problems. And it's an initiative that is just joining the dots of so many of those challenges. Raj mentioned them just now, many of those. And so, it's CGIAR has worked for many years on food security, on agriculture, and the periodic table of food, we moved into nutrition, and now we're bridging even further out into making that linkage between agriculture all the way to health. And that's critical if we're going to survive this century with so many of the challenges that we have. So it's trailblazing in that sense. It's trailblazing in the partnership that we have for this, right? And we're sat up here, Greg and myself, and we had this first conversation about how we can support this potentially as a partnership, as a secretariat between the American Heart Association and the Alliance of Biodiversity and CIAT, a member of CGIAR. And that kind of partnership's never happened. This grouping of two institutions coming from very different sectors working together around this topic. And so it's trailblazing in that sense. It's trailblazing on the technology side of things, right? This would never have been possible 5 years ago. And the technology really is now allowing this revolution in food science, and we can just finally actually understand what we eat. I think Selena in the video very eloquently said, we don't know what we're eating. We're putting food in our mouths every day, and we don't know what's in it. And so, the technology is going to just bring it alive to understand that a lot better. And so, what I have, maybe not so humble hopes for this project, but I think it's going to move us towards thinking about redefining what food is. And it's not just something for filling stomachs. It's much more than that. And, we need to be thinking about food for healing, move away from food being classified as this kind of driver of disease and death globally, but as food as something which heals society, heals humans, people, and heals society. I mean, the cultural importance of food, and I'm sure we're going to hear it from Chef Alejandro here, super important. And so, and beyond that, it's not just healing humans, it's healing the planet as well. And I think we've got to see how we can make this link, join all of these dots, and use PTFI as a springboard really to be redefining what food is and bring it to be a force for good in society.
And one way to think about this is almost like a map of food. And when you look at history, the power of mapping has really transformed entire sectors. The age of discovery in the 16th century was really kicked off because the Dutch East India Company published a set of maps, and suddenly everybody wanted to start looking. I mean, when you look at the Human Genome Project, it was when we fully sequenced the human genome, it suddenly set the table, the foundation for all kinds of research that wasn't possible before. And I think that's a similar, what we're doing right now is creating a map. And upon that map, people are going to start exploring and learning things that are going to be, I think, very exciting.
Absolutely. And Annie spoke a little bit about people putting food in their mouths. As someone who puts food in a lot of people's mouths, can you talk a little bit about how personal food is to you and to your community, and how you think about food as a driver of health?
Yeah, absolutely. As a chef, first of all, I am super excited that we are literally finally getting a seat at the table. We are on the other end, right? There's the science and there's the research, and we are the ones trying to bridge that gap and educating people on how to put into practice like all of these amazing discoveries. And food is not only a source of sustenance and nourishment, but it also allows us to celebrate traditions. It allows us to come together. There's so much to food, and it goes beyond putting it in our mouths, right? Food as medicine, as I like to call it. I'm a huge advocate, and in times where there is so much food, but there's also so much malnutrition and so little access to it for so many. I just think it's so important to understand. And I'm a cookbook author. I'm science-based all through. And where there are so much foods that have very little nutrient density, it's just so important to have access to that knowledge so that people can maximize their investment in food, so that people can reap the benefits of what is in food, and so as a chef, my responsibility is telling people how to cook it, because food has to be delicious, right? Like food can be very, like I can tell people all day about how nutrient rich is okra, and people are gonna cringe their face and tell me how the texture or but I'm like, well, but you can cook it this way. And so I like to change people's minds by showing delicious applications of food, but food has to be nourishing and it has to be good for humans and the planet.
Well, I'm sure that they're the grateful beneficiaries of your knowledge and expertise in that way. Thank you. So, the connection between nutrition and health has been well established. And Nancy Brown, the chief executive of the American Heart Association, one of the co-secretariat organizations with the Alliance for Biodiversity, CIAT, is attending the World Economic Forum this evening, but through the magic of technology, she's able to share her perspective on how the PTFI fits into the Heart Association's mission to build longer, healthier lives for everyone.
Good evening. I wish that I was with you in person tonight. I was just in Geneva, but now I'm in Davos attending the World Economic Forum. As the CEO of the American Heart Association, it is my honor to share a few words about the Periodic Table of Food initiative. As you know, the American Heart Association has a long-standing commitment to science and research. We also educate consumers about how maintaining a healthy diet and exercising are some of the best ways to protect against heart disease. Our health is linked to what we eat. Poor nutrition can increase our risk to chronic diseases. This is underscored by the fact that the global burden of malnutrition is predicted to impact 50% of the population by 2025. This means that there is more prevalence of disease, including cardiometabolic disease, and health outcomes are worsening. Globally, obesity has tripled in 50 years. Risk factors, including type 2 diabetes, can lead to heart failure and stroke. They can also contribute to the health and economic burden, regardless of a country's economic status. Behavior modification is challenging. Despite decades of nutritional awareness, we've seen limited impact on public health. We do know, however, that people respond differently to the same foods, but nutritional research lacks understanding about how the composition of food links to health. A more personalized approach to food has been hailed as a possible solution to address the global health crisis. The Periodic Table of Food initiative will be revolutionary to providing the data needed to understand the factors that govern our body's response to what we eat. By providing personalized nutrition that considers how an individual uniquely responds to food, we can improve health outcomes for all so that everyone has the opportunity for longer, healthier lives.
Thank you, Nancy. So, we have Dr. Branca here, and from your expertise at the WHO, I'd love for us to dive a little bit more into the connection between nutrition and health.
Well, as you've already heard, unhealthy diet is a big burden for disease. And if you put together the burden of unhealthy diet, which is about 8 million deaths every year, with that of obesity, which is another 5, with that of maternal and child malnutrition is another 3. Altogether, it's about a third of all the deaths. So can you imagine, not only having a good diet would make you happy and well, but there would be an enormous saving on our health systems. But also having a healthy diet and a good nutrition would enhance incredibly the economic development. There's an estimated about 11% of gross domestic product for the whole continent of Africa would be enhanced if we had a better diet. And obesity per se is an enormous cost, $1.2 trillion as a consequence of obesity. And by the way, half of it is in the United States. So, an incredible opportunity, but we need to understand what we mean by healthy diet. In WHO, we define healthy diet as a diet which is promoting growth and development and preventing all forms of malnutrition. And we have multiple forms of malnutrition. Then it's basically described in general terms as a diet largely based on plant diet, particularly whole grain cereals, legumes, fruit and vegetables. Then a diet which basically doesn't have certain excesses. We know that we have an excess, for example, of salt, which is probably the top risk factor. We have an excess of sugars. We eat too much processed meat. But then, the biggest part is what we don't eat enough. And definitely the whole grain cereals and the plant food. So having that better understanding of the composition of food is going to give us a bit more detail of what we mean by healthy diet and how we can actually classify individual foods with an eye on what their health impact is going to be. There's a world in the food that we are not aware of. I think you mentioned the bioactive compounds, and just to give some example, a lot of food have the capacity to modulate our endocrine systems, or the antioxidants, or the protection of cancer. There's so much in those foods that we're learning about, let alone, our comprehensive understanding about certain foods which are not known. There's a lot of food in Africa, in Asia, which are not well described, and which would actually be important to bring back in human diets with the improvement of health and biodiversity.
That's great, thank you. Andy, would you talk a little bit more about the scientific and analytical process that we're setting up here?
The scientific
and analytical processes that we're setting up here with.
Yeah, well, Raj went into it. We first of all, if you look at nutritional composition databases, that's the basis for making decisions about what a certain diet is delivering in terms of kind of the human nutrition. They're generally based on data which comes from multiple different sources. It's patched together. We get nutritional composition databases that, to be honest, are just not representing the potential of our food system. It's looking at, first of all, a much more limited number of species or crops. For example, it's just crazy that nearly 50% of calories that are consumed every day by the global population come from three species, when we have tens of thousands of edible species. And so many of these nutritional composition databases, the global standards, are really only looking at 200 to 300 of these foods, when we have thousands available to us. And so one of the things that we want to do is there's a strong element of kind of valuing diversity in the food system in this project. And so how can we discover what's in the food for the next 1,000 species that maybe are useful today and in the future need to be much more prevalent in our daily diet? So that's one piece. But then the other piece is going deeper. And so Raj mentioned 150 compounds. We're really, first of all, what many of us as consumers interact with is a label, which has the 10 things that are in it, and that's That's a massive generalization, really. You know, I mean, there are so many, you know, there are all sorts of different types of sugar and carbohydrates in different ways, and they do different things to your body. And so it's getting much more deeper into that. These food composition databases look at 150 compounds. With the technology, we can potentially go into the thousands of this. And so, you know, then you're just getting a much better idea of what is in that thing that you're putting in your mouth and what it can do to you. You know, and that then will have knock-on effects on all sorts. It's giving some of these species that are not currently consumed as much as they are a chance, and, you know, making them, you know, bringing them to life by saying, look, this has all of these great things in it, and you know, this could contribute to human health, human development in new ways.
Yeah. We're really building that new map together about how we can all eat for planetary health and human health. Roy, is there anything you'd say about the standardization approach? I know we're going to hear a little bit more later from Steve Watkins about the analytical chemistry, but if there's something you would share about the standardization.
Sure. You know, one of the things we discovered, and it was really Steve Watkins and Verso Biosciences that did this. You know, they took one apple, sent it to 10 different mass spectrometry labs, basically came up with 10 different answers. And, you know, and the basis of science is reproducible results. And so we don't even have the basis of science if we can't reproduce those results. And I think what we're hoping with this project is we'll create standardized methods that you can send a specimen to any lab that's part of this network and get the same answer. And that's the basis on which we advance our understanding of nutrition. The second thing that I'm really super excited by is that, you know, when you look at a food composition table, it just says apple. But we all know there are many kinds of apples. Where was it grown? How was it grown? How was it transported? And all these things, I think we're going to capture that metadata so that each sample that gets put into the database adds to the global understanding of how of the diversity of that food. And so, you know, my guess is there are going to be some regions that have really nutrient-dense foods, or there are going to be some varieties that'll help us also choose. And maybe farmers can make more money when they're doing choosing those kinds of methods, et cetera.
And it'll inform some of the choices that Alejandra, you can make as you're trying to put new.
Yeah, I'm like smiling. In Venezuela, I would say I'm like biting my earlobes out of excitement. Because, like, you know, we're talking about two important things here: biodiversity and giving consumers the opportunity to become, you know, fighters for the planet and promote biodiversity that way. And we're also talking about, you know, it's been said that there's tens of thousands of edible plants out there, and we're doing a horrible job. Not only, you know, 3 are like the vast majority of the calorie intake of people, but in general, we're eating about 30 varieties, you know. But also about, you know, the concept that we talk about in the culinary world about eating the rainbow. Every color of edible plants have a purpose, if you will, a variety of phytochemicals and micronutrients, and we need to, in order to reap the benefits from all of those colors, we need to eat them. And I appreciate when Roy's talking about, you know, like, yeah, there's such a wide variety of apples, you know, like if you know, there's like thousands of varieties of potatoes, you know, and here, you know, we probably use 3 or 4. And to have access to that data that explains how is one variety different, not necessarily better or worse than the other, I think it would encourage people to diversify their culinary palate, to eat more variety of plants, which is necessary to promote biodiversity, because as we know, I'll finish with this. Like, you know, I come from Venezuela, and every time I visit, there is a fruit or vegetable that I used to eat and love that is no longer available. And the loss of biodiversity is just detrimental for the environment. So I just think that there is so much good coming out of the Periodic Table of Food Initiative, and that it's, for me, it's a great foundation for education and empowerment of people.
Great, thank you. Well, and we're really grateful for all of you sharing your perspectives on the vision for how this initiative can impact the global society.